Welcome to Daily Variety, your daily dose of news and analysis for entertainment industry insiders. It's Thursday, February 5th, 2026. I'm your host, Cynthia Littleton. I am co-editor-in-chief of Variety alongside Ramin Satuda. I'm in LA, he's in New York, and Variety has reporters around the world covering the business of entertainment. In today's episode, we'll hear from Variety's Daniel D'Addario on his latest cover story, which goes behind the scenes on Ryan Murphy's latest FX series, Love Story. It focuses on the relationship between John F. Kennedy Jr. and the woman who became his wife, Carolyn Bessette. And after that, Variety's Jennifer Moss discusses the world of Dungeons and Dragons and how this very old role-playing game has become a huge business for independent streaming platforms. But before we get to that, here are a few headlines just in this morning that you need to know. Neon has picked up the rights to the Sundance film Once Upon a Time in Harlem. It got rave reviews coming out of the festival last month. Amazon Prime Video is trying it again with the Grand Tour, the automotive travelogue series that was previously hosted by the Top Gear trio of Richard Hammond, Jeremy Clarkson, and James May. It's coming back with 3 new hosts: Francis Bourgeois, Thomas Holland, and James Engelsman. OpenAI chief Sam Altman took to social media to air his complaints about the Super Bowl ad that is coming from his biggest AI rival, Anthropic. This quickly has turned into a sporting event for people in the sector. All of these stories and so much more can be found on Variety.com right now. And now it's time for conversations with Variety journalists about news and trends in show business. Daniel D'Addario, Variety's chief correspondent, details his latest cover story, which is all about the latest installment of FX's Love Story anthology series franchise. This time around, it's a dive back into the recent past to look at the bright light that was JFK Jr. and his marriage to Carolyn Bessette before tragedy struck. Like the Kennedys, this series has been subject. Like all things with the Kennedys, this series that premieres on February 12th has already been subject to a lot of public scrutiny. Daniel D'Addario, thanks again for joining me.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Well, this time the assignment was time travel back to the late 90s and to do a deep dive on the latest from the Ryan Murphy shop for FX, the latest in his Love Story franchise, JFK Jr. and Carolyn Bessette. We captured incredible images of star Paul Anthony Kelly, who is really making his big debut, and Sarah Pidgeon, who impressed in a number of things in the last couple of years going in. What was your POV? What did you think the heart of this story was going to be, and what did you find it to be?
I expected it to be a personality profile of these 2 very engaging, compelling actors who have the very difficult challenge of playing real people who really lived in living memory, and they were extremely forthcoming, generous with their time and their insights. The more I delved into the craft of this show, the more interested I was. Listeners may remember that last summer, images from the set became public, and there was a bit of an uproar because the fashions of Carolyn Bessette Kennedy especially are so well remembered, and it didn't have the accurate look. It felt like something was missing. And the production responded, bringing in a new costumer who whipped them into shape. And now it is a really loving tribute, not just to these people, but to an entire era of celebrity and political culture. And I felt as though that level of craft and love, as in the performances, as in the writing by showrunner Connor Hines, it just kind of suffused every level of the production. It was a pleasure to write about.
Another example where there is so much intense interest in these kinds of things. Did you get the sense in talking to Connor and others that they were at all resentful about the fact that those early looks got out and the response was so bad, or did they feel like, wow, they did some focus groups for us before we'd even shot a frame, or as we were just starting to shoot?
I think from this vantage point, I spoke to them after that had all played out. I think there's a retroactive feeling of like, while it may not have been comfortable, we're glad it happened because it allowed them to regroup. I will also say that I think for Sarah Pidgeon especially, the level of interest, we all know what street shoots in New York are like. It's on public view and very visible and tons of onlookers gawking. She's also playing a character whose life comes to be controlled by the paparazzi interest in her. And so she told me that it brought her closer into the experience that Carolyn had in her life by the kind of pursuit and the feeling that she was being scrutinized, which she never really had been before.
I did an interview years ago with Brooke Shields, who really broke down what it felt like to be, quite frankly, hunted
Yeah.
by a pack of paparazzi. And I never forgot it. And she said, especially around her daughters, when she was out in New York with her daughters. Of course, that's, late 90s. And fast forward, it's almost like the world, we've all become paparazzos, right? We all
Right.
have the phone in our hand. Did you get a sense from talking to Connor and others about sort of how they dealt with the larger Kennedy mystique, or do they feel like this is inevitably imbued with all of John F. Kennedy, Jackie Kennedy, and all of that larger aura that the Kennedy
Well,
family has?
it's an interesting question because in life, John F. Kennedy Jr. wore his celebrity lightly. He was suffused with the aura of his family, but he tried to do his own thing and be his own kind of person. And so the show, similarly, I think looks for the people within the majesty. And I think it does a very elegant job of prizing out real characters who we think of as people in their own right, over and above the fact that their last name is Kennedy.
Is it mostly told from the Carolyn Bessette POV, or is it a little more omnipotent?
Eventually, the point of view becomes merged because they're a couple that comes together and is eventually married. I would say at the beginning, we get equal time from both points of view. We spend some time with Carolyn and we spend some time with John as the pair are kind of circling one another.
Well, as often with these things, looking back at how attitudes have changed, your story really did a good job of making me think about how back then, more than 25 years ago, what it would have been like to be very high up at Calvin Klein, but nonetheless to be plucked from that, where you're still basically a private person, to the world where there's like serious discussion of what color nail polish what color polish you need to wear to meet your in-laws on Martha's Vineyard. Anything else, Dan, that stands out to you in terms of what you observed because you got to see some filming of this
I
project?
mean, it was great seeing them filming on location. One of the benefits of Tribeca is that it has restaurants and bars that haven't really changed since the is that was a very fun day. I would just say, I think as we think about the future of Disney with their kind of leadership transition, FX is part of that. It came to be within the Disney Corporation with the 2019 merger. And I think a lot of people weren't sure what was going to happen and if it was just going to go away. To his credit, John Landgraf has really protected that brand. And part of how he's done that is by using the resources at his disposal. I don't think I know a show like Shogun or like Alien Earth, which are so resource intensive, would not have been on their air 6 years ago. This as well. I think this uses the Ryan Murphy, who's had a relationship with FX for more than 20 years, but it's a very resource intensive version of the Ryan Murphy vision. It is no expense was spared in conjuring the 90s.
Mhm. The Ryan Murphy organization is famous for being exacting in its standards, whether it's contemporary or period. And again, listeners, I cannot wait for you to see the photos. They look fantastic. I can't let you go without talking about Paul Anthony Kelly, who plays JFK. What
Yes,
a
it
way to
is.
make an entrance.
Plucked from the chorus. Yes, indeed. I mean, it is his first ever role in anything, and I think that he'd been wanting to break into acting from the world of modeling, but he'd faced a disappointing setback, which is the audition for the role and didn't get it. They rejected him. They ultimately had such a hard time casting the role of John F. Kennedy Jr. that they brought back 13 actors they had rejected for a do or die final casting blitz 3 weeks before production started. And then he got it on the day, which is a very exciting development. And it feels like Kismet. The problem was they couldn't find anyone with a JFK Jr. look. He has it. He's great in the part.
Can't wait to check it out. For many years, I had the last issue of George magazine at home. It was so interesting to see somebody of his stature and caliber put his imprint on a magazine. That was very ahead of his time. The fact that he had invested in media showed that I think he knew where the power and the currency was going to be in the future. Such a sad story, but an important story for people to understand this period in time. Dan, thank you so much for bringing us this great curtain raiser.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
And now we turn to Jennifer Maz. Variety's senior writer for TV and video games. She gives us the backstory on how she brought together a meeting of great minds of D&D in Brennan Lee Mulligan of Dimension 20 and Matt Mercer of Critical Role. These two held a summit of game masters that was turned into a video that has been burning up on Variety's YouTube page. Jennifer Maz, thank you so much for joining me.
Happy to be here again.
You are our navigator into this growing world of truly independent alternative streaming platforms that really have these new forms of entertainment, blending genres and mediums. It's very fascinating. You've really got your finger on the pulse of them. When you write about them, when you're talking about them, all of a sudden I see people running around with t-shirts, and I see instances of people talking about Dropout and platforms like Beacon, and the particular show Dimension 20, I know, has incredible sizzle with Gen Z and Gen Alpha. You are the brains behind the video that we did that brought together none other than Brennan Lee Mulligan of Dimension 20 and Matt Mercer of Critical Role. This is a meeting of the minds that the internet has truly flocked to. It has been one of the most successful of our original videos in recent memory, and we have, at this moment when we're stepping up original video content quite a bit, that's really saying something. When did you conceive the idea of a meeting of the minds? Because you were the brains behind putting this video together.
So I'd be lying if I said this wasn't in part inspired by watching our many seasons of AOA and Directors on Directors, because the vision there was looking at this as the same kind of art form and knowing that there is an audience that takes this as seriously as that, and those stories that are told and how they're told. So I've been covering Dropout for a while. For those who might not know, Dropout is the successor to College Humor and run by Sam Reich. Brendan Lee Mulligan is one of the top creators there. He runs Dimension 20. That's their D&D show. And so I've seen Brendan a few times, interviewed him a couple of times for different things to do with Dropout and Dimension 20 specifically. When they did their big live show at Madison Square Garden, I talked to Brendan for that. Sold out show. Another showing the power of the D&D community there, because all of those people were there to watch people play D&D. So then I'd also covered Critical Role and what they're doing. And we had the big news of announcing that Brendan Lee Mulligan was going to be coming over to Critical Role and kind of taking over Matt Mercer's job for a season as the head of their show to allow Matt to play as a player. These are two giant shows that are based on D&D fandom, and they have a lot of their own personalizations that they've done over the years to the games to make it much more their own rather than just a straight Wizards of the Coast D&D property. And it's really cool to see how many people were interested in seeing this and everything that they talked about during it.
When I was a kid, Dungeons and Dragons was something that was played by bearded Caltech students in the basement of the university. Clearly become much more mass market if you have so much economic activity and so many shows around it. What is it about D&D that captures people's imaginations?
I think one thing in particular about these, like they call them actual play shows, is that you're watching a community of people play a game. And that might sound crazy, but as someone who also covers video games, I know how many people spend time on YouTube watching people play video games. But the underlying reason behind D&D is because it's about storytelling and it's about role playing, and you can do it in any way you want. And these episodes are 3-4 hours long, and people watch them and they're interested in them. And I've noticed a few of the comments, people are like, I would really love to get into D&D, but I don't have a group to play with, so I watch Dimension 20 or I watch Critical Role, because in lieu of playing it, you can watch other people play it.
Can you play it in digestible bites? My memory of, again, D&D from many, many decades ago was that it was like a commitment people would spend their weekends doing.
But there's all different kinds. You can do what they call a one-shot, which is we're sitting down, we're going to play through this one part. This is a story, it starts and it ends. What you're thinking of, and what's still very much the case, is campaigns. And there are campaigns that can go on for 15 years. That's when you're meeting every weekend and you are planning and you're talking, you've got your characters and you have years of lore behind it. But there are digestible pieces, and the way that they've made the format digestible for their streaming platforms and for audiences is that they will come up with a season. Critical Role is currently in campaign 4. Dimension 20 has done a whole bunch and they named theirs based on whatever the name of the cool thing Brennan's come up with is. And they play that out for the season. And it will have tons of episodes and they'll be long episodes, but they do come to an end. But they've had to plan it like TV seasons at that point so that they can tell people this will end and this is what it will end. And people check in every week like they're playing D&D with their friends for the new episode.
I think it's fascinating to see at a time when traditional Hollywood is just all about consolidation. You are seeing these green shoots of independent economic activity at platforms that are growing. They're not going to rival Netflix next year, but just the fact that there's a healthy ecosystem that can support them through subscribers and whatever kind of deal making they do, as you've written about with Dropout, like they've got a really nice base that they clearly know how to build and are growing. And that is, I think, more vital than ever for a healthy ecosystem, that there is honest to goodness, truly independent platforms out there that are surviving and thriving and clearly reaching an audience that is elusive for other networks. I'm just so glad that you got your finger on the pulse and that you were able to bring this incredible meeting of the minds, because it has paid benefits for Variety's YouTube page.
But truly speaking about the business part that you touched on there, obviously this is not rivaling Netflix, but what's interesting here is profitability. Like on a different scale, Dropout had profit sharing. Dropout has more subscribers than College Humor ever did. Like as a business, they are growing year over year and adding and changing. And I know Critical Role, when they launched Beacon, that was a whole new revenue stream for them. And they are adding, and they have Amazon TV shows being adapted from their TV show into animated series. Like it is a business, and it might seem like small potatoes or whatever, but it's going to grow. And it's a business that currently is doing very well.
Thank you, Jenny. So appreciate you being, again, our navigator into this new and interesting world.
Happy to.
As we close out today's episode, here's a few things we're watching for. Well, there's a big football game on Sunday. Go Seahawks. Variety will have tons of coverage of all the entertainment aspects of the Super Bowl, from the halftime show to the parade of ads that everyone will be talking about, including Sam Altman. Keep an eye on Variety.com and our social platforms all weekend. We have a lot of Super Bowl-tastic content, including my sit-down with the NFL's Chief Marketing Officer, Tim Ellis. He has a lot to say about how the league has really tried to expand its tent over the past decade. And tomorrow, we'll have a special bonus Friday episode of Daily Variety. I'm about to sit down with Russ Hollander, Executive Director of the Directors Guild of America. Hollywood's latest round of labor talks begins on Monday. For a change, the DGA is not first up at the table with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. We'll find out how Hollander feels about that and a lot more. Before we go, congrats to Variety's own Emily Longaretta. She's been promoted to Director of Features for our Focus editorial department. Emily has been a star from the day she walked into Variety in January 2022. We are excited to see her take the reins of our features coverage, as well as FYC, lifestyle, travel, pop culture coverage, and much more. Thanks for listening. This episode was written and reported by me, Cynthia Littleton, with contributions from Daniel D'Addario and Jennifer Maas. Stick, snicks, hick, picks. Please leave us a review at the podcast platform of your choice, and please tune in tomorrow for that special bonus Friday episode of Daily Variety. And don't forget to tell us what you think at podcasts@variety.com. Thanks.